Breaking news from Toronto. An Ontario man who spent 4.5 decades trying to clear his name has been exonerated in the murder of his wife. His name is John Salmon. He was convicted in 1970 in the death of his common-law wife, Maxine Ditchfield. He served 4 years in prison. Now, at the time, a pathologist testified that Ditchfield had died from a severe beating. A team of pathologists hired by the Association for the Wrongly Accused determined that she had fallen multiple times while suffering a stroke. Today, an Ontario Court of Appeal acquitted Salmon of the murder. Now, his lawyer is talking to reporters now, so let's listen in to what Stephen Lockyer has to say.
Then he finally got it.
What in your statement to the court, you talked a bit about, how he's been living with this shame. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What it's been like?
Well, a lot of people, one of the reasons he moved to Orillia was to try and get away from the shame of what he'd been convicted of, but it followed him there, as it was really bound to. And it's impacted him in, ways that we don't necessarily think about. Employment, the ability to travel, the ability to take airplanes, the ability to, indeed, to relate to people and make friends. Because, people are put off when they know that you've been convicted of such a nasty crime, because it was a very nasty crime that he was convicted of, basically beating a woman to death.
Can you talk to us a little bit about sort of where the original sort of evidence, what went wrong? I know it's been in all the documents, but perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about what did the court get so wrong the first time?
Well, when someone dies, a pathologist is called in, and if the pathologist declares it to be a homicide, which he did in this case, it sets off a chain of events that's almost unstoppable. And that's what happened in this case. The pathologist examined Maxine's body and concluded that she was the victim of a beating when she wasn't. And if she was, it had to be John Salmon who did it, when in reality, it was Mr. Salmon who had been caring for her for 48 hours and trying to get a doctor to come and see her, and it took more than 12 hours for him to get the doctor there, because he could see that her condition her health was deteriorating over that sort of 36-hour period. And so many of these cases of wrongful conviction result from a bad pathology at the outset, where a homicide, where a natural cause's death is turned into a homicide, or where other mistakes are made by the pathologist. And this is just another one of those cases.
Well, you've covered many of these, unfortunately, probably more than any other lawyer in the city. How does this one, if you can compare it, he approached you 15 years ago, and here we are in 2015, from my understanding, it was 2000 when he wanted to try to have this overturned. So how do you see the length of time from Supreme Court back to appeal court, how long this one took?
Well, these cases always do take a lot of time. The first thing that we have to do is try and get all the archival material, work out where it is. As fast as we get one thing, we have to follow something else up, and so on and so forth. And then, in this case, go to experts and ask them. We have to read the case ourselves, get an idea of where the frailties in the case are. Once we've concluded that the person's likely innocent, as we did with Mr. Salmon pretty early on, and then go to the people who can help us. And that all takes time, and then the process itself always takes time. Indeed, in this case, without going into the intricacies of it, there was a dispute as to whether we selected the right process to start with. But here we are today. I don't think we should really reflect too much on how long it's taken. We can do that at a later date. For today's purposes, it's a good day. A good day for us, a good day for Mr. Salmon more than anyone, and his family.
The children of Maxine Ditchfield, Kirk McLean said to us just a moment ago that he still believes that there's an unanswered question in this case, and that's how Maxine felt, whether she was pushed or whether she fell, and there was a lot of violence in the home. He said, what's your response to that? Does this hang over the exoneration?
Not at all, but I think it tells you the problems that happen when that initial mistake is made by the pathologist, because it doesn't just set up a train of events for the person who's wrongly convicted, but it sets up a train of events for family members of a deceased. And they get trapped into the same wrong conclusions, not surprisingly, that are generated by, in this case, the pathologist, Dr. Dietrich. It's not unusual in the cases that we've done. Sometimes the family of a deceased have come around to realize that they were living a lie, so to speak. But in some cases, the family can't get around it, and I can understand that. Does it cast any blot on John Salmon's acquittal today and his exoneration? Of course not. But it would be nice if, and I know Mr. Salmon or John would say this, he would love to talk to his stepchildren again. He hasn't talked to them since 1970, since September 22nd, 1970. He has never spoken to his stepchildren. How sad is that? For them and him.
Well, that is lawyer James Lockyer. He takes on cases of wrongful conviction, speaking to reporters today about the case involving John Salmon, the Ontario man who was today acquitted of murder 45 years after the death of his common-law wife. Now, Salmon served 3 years in prison for her death. He fought for 4 decades to clear his name, and the Ontario Court of Appeal overturning the conviction. The jury initially found, by the way, that he had beaten her in a drunken rage, but now 4 forensic pathologists say that the brain swelling was caused by a fall and a stroke, and the bruises believed to be caused by repeated falls.